let's move on to part 2 called A Game of Chess. And those watching can see this nice image of Murray Head from the musical Chess. One Night in Bangkok. All right, so one of the key figures, or there are two of them really.
But hold on, you can't jump straight to that. I mean, I know that there is this really huge image that opens this section.
Okay, tell me.
I think we have to at least mention it.
Okay.
Well, there's this really bizarre, otherworldly representation of someone like a Cleopatra figure, who I've heard some people compare to Vivian Haywood.
Mm-hmm.
Not in terms of her visual appearance, but she's like the high class foil to the lower class relationship that we'll see portrayed later in this section. So she's sitting on a throne, looking at a mirror. We've got Cupid, vines, a candelabra, reflecting light. Then we get into this weird drugged atmosphere of vials and synthetic perfumes. There's a great word here, unguent. And the senses are drowned in odors. We've got other words like lacuria. I do like enfattening the prolonged candle flames. But again, it's all kind of... It's quite challenging, I would say. Like, there's definitely... It's hard to... For me, it was just hard to really access this section. But all that comes, and then we see some scenes in this woman's wall carvings. I don't know if that's what we would call it, but it says, above the antique mantle was displayed, as though a window gave upon the sylvan scene, the change of Philomel by the barbarous king. So you can get into that now, but is there anything you want to say about like our introduction to this woman? Did you have any reaction to that part?
No, I didn't. I didn't try to. I mean,
okay.
During this most recent reading, I didn't try to decode who she was. Who is the she that sat in this chair? I just glossed over that as quickly as possible and tried to
And you made me suffer with it.
Well, I mean, it was your first time. I've already suffered enough.
Yeah.
And so I just grabbed onto the broken image which appealed more to me, and that would be this I mean, I'm glad you connect this, because we're looking at this sylvan scene on her antique mantle, right? Whoever she is, this queenly figure. And we see Philomel by the barbarous king so rudely forced, and that's Tyreus, not to be confused with Tiresias. That's a kind of weird similarity that might be tricky for some readers, right? Like, we see Tyreus, the rapist, or I don't know, wannabe rapist, attacking.
What do you mean by wannabe rapist?
Well, okay, yeah, rapist. I forget about when she changed into a nightingale, right? It was after the fact. He actually did succeed at raping her, and then she became a nightingale. Is that it? Philomel?
Yes, okay. Exactly.
All right, so there was penetration. Let's be clear about that. He wasn't a wannabe rapist. He actually is a rapist. And she was rudely forced, and then later she changed into a nightingale. But this is the first... Yeah.
I think it's important to note that he cut off her tongue,
mm-hmm.
right? so that she couldn't tell anyone about what he had
Mm-hmm.
done. And I think he cut off her hands as well, so she couldn't write about what had happened.
So she could
So
only
then she's
say jug jug.
and then she becomes a nightingale, and like her way of expressing her pain is just by singing. Yeah, so she can't, but she can't actually articulate what happened.
It sounds jug jug to dirty ears, he
Yeah,
says.
like yours. That's all you heard.
Yeah, my ears
Which
are.
is actually like a pretty funny line, as well, because I've heard that I definitely don't think I would have got this without like other critics, and that doesn't mean that the other critics are right, but the argument I heard is that, we're getting this quite elaborate allusion to mythology, which the erudite person would pick up on, but like the dumb fucks of today, they hear all this being described and they just hear jug jug. So it's like they can't follow. And
We of the
jug
dirty
jug,
ears.
yeah, and like the jug jug being kind of like a boob reference as well. Like, so I don't know. And then I saw the next line, like, and other withered stumps of time. So that to me means like other myths, other important parts of this like canon that we should be versed in,
Mm-hmm.
according to Eliot. And I think this is a decent time to just ask some questions about the expectations that Eliot places on the reader to pick up on the illusions. What can a modern, I mean, you're a lot more drenched. Is that the word I'm looking for? Maybe you're a lot more drenched and based, and you have a stronger foundation, both because of your interests and because of your formal studies in antiquity and Greek myth and so on. So I would assume that these constant illusions maybe wake your spirit up more than someone. But I'm just wondering, like, a person like me who maybe would know a couple outstanding references, but in general, I look up the illusion. I'm able to like connect the dots, but just in a very like mathematical way, right? Without like the full like weight of that original story. Like that original story doesn't move me because I
Right.
don't know it. I haven't, right? So
Right. Well, this one
all
is
it does is explain.
this is a somewhat obscure story. It's Eliot gets it by way of Ovid.
Right.
So, Ovid is interested in it because it involves a metamorphosis. Philomel she metamorphoses into a nightingale, right? All the metamorphoses are about these transformations that take place. People change into animals, or Tiresias changes into a woman, and so on, right? That's why Tiresias is also featured in the Metamorphosis, but that's not. He kind of had like an idiosyncratic purpose in his mythological tale telling. Ovid did, because all of the stories had to involve some kind of transformation. So this is not like, I don't know. Take the classical Greeks of the 5th century, right? Like they may have known this story, but that wasn't like as central to their mythological imaginations as, say, the story of Oedipus. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So my point is, Ovid himself is a kind of obscurantist in the classical tradition, even though he's important for Shakespeare. Shakespeare loved Ovid, and for
It's a
Eliot
name
too.
that I recognize,
Yeah.
right? Like it's. So let me
No,
ask
he's
though, like,
great. The metamorphoses are great. I mean, it's a great work, but I'm just saying, like, his he has a kind of idiosyncratic view of mythology. There are a lot of mythological treasures in there, but it's not. I don't know. It's not like the myth that you get in Homer or Hesiod or I don't know some of the other earlier Greeks. Ovid is Roman, so
Mm.
it's all secondhand anyway.
I
Which
mean, is
I
this?
don't know if I answered your question, but it's like
Yeah,
even for someone supposedly steeped in all of that or drenched in it, as you say.
steeped. That's the word I wanted.
Yeah, well,
Steeped.
drenched is
I think you
fine.
can say drenched in certain contexts, though.
Why not? Why not? Um, of course, as I say, some of the details are sketchy. When did she change into a nightingale? Before or after the rape? I didn't look it up this time because, as I say, it's not that important to me. I'm just kind of like trying to go with the flow and finish reading. I'm not gonna like look up everything because it's just not worth it to me. But I
So
I thought
let
about
me ask you
this.
though. Let me interrupt you.
Okay.
I just want to ask, like, are you regretful or wistful for a time where there was a more universally agreed upon literary canon for all like people
No,
interested in?
no,
Okay,
I embrace the heap of broken images. I like that
yeah,
because then we can borrow from whatever tradition. We're not all locked into one tradition. I like the explosion of cultures and traditions and mythological systems, so we can pick and
but
choose.
Eliot would argue that it makes it's kind of one of those what what's the expression, master of something
Jack of all trades, master of
trades, yeah,
none.
jack of all, yeah, yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
like but actually what many people become is just amateur jacks, uh, or like maybe that's not true, but we've all become so specialized that we don't have a common language, and that would be his argument presumably. So do we lose something in like that lack of unity?
Sure, yeah. I mean, Picasso talked about how the Egyptians had a pictorial language, right? Which all artists of the time understood. But okay, then that passed and something else developed. I mean, that's just how it is, right? Like you could say that about any
Right,
genre,
so
like uh, I don't know, 60s and 70s rock music, right? Like that had its time of flourishing and then I don't know, it exploded and
so
became
basically you
something
just don't
else.
feel the same sense of like
Nostalgia.
tragic loss that Eliot feels, right? That's the main
I
thing
think he's
that
just being a drama queen. He's just like over he's being hyperbolic about it. And he's not is he
yeah.
really that upset about it? I mean, if he were, why is he not like a pagan, right? Why does he go join the Anglican Church if he's so nostalgic for Greco-Roman tradition?
I don't think he's nostalgic for Greco-Roman tradition. He's nostalgic for the continuity of history
Well, where's the continuity there?
and
That's a total disruption. You have
no, but the
one.
point is he would say like Christianity would be like the main flow from he wants like to preserve the canon in a way.
Well, so does the canon include these non-Christian authors? I mean,
Sure.
you could say that Dante is kind of the bridge between the I don't know the pagan or non-Christian past and the Christian present. I mean, he's a in that sense Dante is well in every sense Dante is an important figure, and I
Yeah,
think
but I'm saying
Eliot.
it was a conservative move to become an Anglican. It was
Yeah,
like right. So and it's conservative also to say that the past was better or that the past was more unified than today. So in that sense, I'm just saying it's consistent. It's a consistent perspective.
Okay. I see what you're getting at. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speculate on his motives because I don't share. We referred to that quote of his saying, I'm a classicist in literature, a royalist in politics, and an Anglican in religion. I mean, that's totally um, foreign to me. I mean, classicist in literature to some degree, but is he? I mean, he's not. He's a modernist, right? Like, and why is he trumpeting that as though it's something we should all bow down to and respect? I just don't share his sympathies, you know.
Yeah, and I just don't share his sense of loss.
And I'm not saying like I'm broken up by it. You just asked me, do you lose something? I would say yes, I think you do, but you also gain something. You know, it's not like an irreparable loss. Like
I will
again,
say though that like
yeah.
one of my common like emotional or just spaces that my brain goes is like this kind of bitterness towards phone life, right? And internet life. We've talked about that quite a bit. And it's like the Sylvan scene would be pre-phones, or like we've lost something now that we've gone into the matrix or the world of the internet world,
Well,
right? And like
absolutely, and yeah,
so
you
I feel like I could write a similar poem with, and it would be harking back to the 90s, or the 80s, or the
yeah,
feeling. And
yeah.
so it's like I can sympathize with him in that sense, to think that there's been this like seismic
Yeah,
shift.
me too, and I do think overall we are degenerating. I can go along
Yeah,
with
that's what I
uh,
do feel that.
I
I
can,
do feel
yeah,
that
we've
way.
talked about that many times. I can go along with that. But your original question was, I think, how do I feel about it? And I say I prefer the landscape, which features a heap of broken images, because then I can collect all the broken images I want and create something of my own. It's like Yeats has a poem about picking uh, embroidering a coat with all these different mythologies, a coat of his own, right? Kind of a Joseph coat of Joseph's coat of many colors, right? It's a patchwork coat that you sewed yourself from all these diverse sources. I like that, and yeah, I would say I prefer that because then you can make your own thing. Like you can just pick from amongst the rubble and create anew. Pound says,
Yeah,
"Make it
and
new."
that's what the wasteland would be, I guess. But I'm just saying, maybe the counterpoint to that would be that was possible anyway. It would just happen in a more like smooth way rather than like
I would say it's
everything goes to shit.
I would say it's always been the case. And Eliot, if he thinks there was ever a time of non-fragmentation, he's just being naive. He's over idealizing the past. Even the so-called golden age wasn't a golden age, probably.
And I think that's where we definitely
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Like that's the
So,
idealizing
so,
of the past, and
so.
I'd say I'm guilty of that to some extent
Okay,
too.
well, it can be both and, right? We can agree that we are degenerating, but even the golden age wasn't a golden age,
By
right?
the way, apologies to the viewer. Like the sun is, I'm not super sunburnt. I just look. The sun is just really in my face right now, so I'm shining.
Okay.
Okay, that's my vanity coming out. Sorry,
All right.
my nerves are bad tonight. Yes, bad.
Oh,
What
sorry to hear that. All right.
are you thinking of? I never know what you're thinking. Sorry.
All right. We're bumping up on 2 hours. We're still in section 2. Are we going to be able to finish all 5 of these sections tonight?
Did you get my reference right now? I hope you did.
Yes, I did. I got it.
Okay, thank God, thank God.
Yeah. You're
I
not.
mean,
Yeah.
Herman, right, was the guy who asked how we would be able to get through this, and you
Yeah.
kind of, was that
Right.
Herman? Yeah. So
Yeah. GJV.
Am
We'll
I
come to
pronouncing his
that.
name right? My bad. If not,
We'll come to that. Yeah, I mean, that's a
you
major
decide, man. This
problem.
is your text, but
Oh God, don't blame me
I
for
don't know.
this. Although I
Well,
guess you
you decide
should.
about how we handle it in a show
Yeah.
length, because
All right. Well, let's keep going then. So here's another example of so-called low culture, right? There's some reference to that Shakespearean rag, which I've never heard. Maybe we should put that in the show notes, but it's an actual ragtime song that was popular. It's so elegant, so intelligent. Why does he include this? Is this something that's like heard not on a jukebox, because I don't think they had them then, but like someone's playing this on a phonograph in a pub? Like, where does this come from? Like, what does it mean? There are Shakespearean references. Is that the point? Like, oh,
well,
Shakespeare has
again,
been
a lot of my thoughts are not original. In fact, I would say 93% of the things I'm saying are just stuff I've taken.
93,
But
not
the argument
92.
I did the best I could.
Yeah.
It's just supposed to represent the cultural deformation, like the point that the high culture provides us with Shakespeare, and modern life presents us with the Shakespearean rag. And you could say like that would be like me having to teach a graphic novel version of Hamlet as like that's the only thing that's like digestible by students.
Right.
And that's not what I'm doing, by the way, but that stuff surely happens now where we we beg our students to watch the movie of the book so that they can at least have some understanding of the story.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think you should also read the text, but experience it
That's all I mean. But
as many
people can't
different
handle
ways as
real
possible.
rigor now.
Right.
People don't want to work hard.
Right.
Like I didn't want to work hard with this poem.
Yeah. And maybe you were right not to.
But
I don't know. As I asked the question, I realized, okay, yeah, there are all these Shakespearean references, so maybe that's why he chooses that Shakespearean rag rather than, I don't know, some Scott Joplin tune.
But no, as I explained as well, like this is how Shakespeare is presented now.
I know.
Right? It's like okay. Anyway, hurry up, please. It's time.
Yes, it is. And this is another phrase that always annoyed me. It's in all caps and it keeps being repeated. Of course, when I first read this, I learned that, they're in a pub and that's like last call, basically,
Yeah.
Okay, great. Does that make me a better person?
Because it's like this section is, I mean, on the one hand, I'm thinking about how you said that he didn't really write the working class well, and so I'm happy to hear you, develop that idea further. But as far as accessibility and just straightforward narrative, some of these like lower class sections are the most relatable and in some way for me like most earthy and most interesting. So this scene with this woman speaking in Cockney, I mean, it's a horrible scene because she's so cruel and yeah, she's savage really in her whole argument. But it's, we feel sympathy for Lil, the person that she's describing, and if Eliot's main purpose is to make us sympathize or like sympathy through disgust, I think he's successful in this scene of making us pity the state of life for these people. I don't know if we want to bother explaining what happened, or we don't really have time for plot summary.
Well, I mean, I'm just wondering.
We don't need to. We can just assume that, yeah.
Well, since we're still in the game of chess section, are they playing a kind of psychological game of chess. Lil and whoever the speaker is talking about her husband Albert, and she's basically like threatening.
Lil's not there though. Lil's not there. She's talking to someone else about Lil.
Why do you say that?
Because she says, I didn't mince my words. I said to her myself.
Why are you using a southern accent?
Sorry. I didn't mince my words. Anyway.
Oh, she's reporting what she said to Lil.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Yeah, okay. Eliot is reporting what this character is reporting about what she said to Lil. Right. Yes,
yeah.
I got you. But basically, what I wanted to say is she's basically. I mean, that could still be the game of chess. The Lil and whoever this other woman is, because she's basically saying you better take care of your man or someone else will, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and it's implied that she herself has had an affair with this guy.
Yes. Yeah.
When they talk about the hot gammon. Don't mind if I do.
What is gammon exactly?
Gammon is just a ham, but
okay,
it's just the way that whole phrase is done, where it's like, well, that Sunday Albert was home. They had a hot gammon, and they asked me into dinner to get the beauty of it hot. And then it's like cut off there. Like,
hurry up, please! Like it's time. What? How about this part? It's them pills I took to bring it off. She said. She's had 5 already and nearly died of young George. So some kind of, obviously some kind of birth control or,
yeah, it's an abortion-inducing
pill. Yeah. The chemist
fucked her up physically.
Right. The chemist said it would be all right, but I've never been the same. I mean, that's kind of a literal or I don't know, physiological wasteland, right? The barren womb, which cannot regenerate anymore. But again,
and
so what? So what? So
no, this is the part I do feel like. Okay. I told you, this is the part
you like.
I care about this lady, and if we want to respect Eliot's morality a little bit, like if we want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he is really sad about the state of things, the critic I was listening to kept on saying that he's saying we've lost spirituality and now we've entered this naturalistic state, which I heard you use that word before, and he uses naturalistic as a synonym for Darwinian.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of post-morality, and we're just hustlers, and we're all looking out for ourselves. This will be referred to later on when one of the solutions is seen as sympathy, right? One of the Hindu solutions. But we're just seeing the competitiveness on this, like the raw, strongest survive instinct in these people, that they're not concerned with treating each other well. They're just like, well, if you're not going to ride his dick, then, I will.
How about this? Lil's husband got demobbed. What's that mean?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Mark.
Okay.
Apparently it means
I knew you would.
Demobilized.
From the service.
I guess that means like
from the service.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I'm glad we had this conversation so that I can understand this part I didn't care about. But no,
yeah.
I was thinking of like the mob, but that didn't really make sense. But demobilized does. Yeah, he's coming back from the army maybe after World War I, so that's probably pretty important.
I have a little interesting side note I heard as well, which is that T.S. Eliot himself had like a lot of childhood and adulthood trauma about the state of his teeth. Of course, British people are notorious for having bad teeth, right. But yeah, I think he was harassed as a child, and then in adulthood he only had 3 of his original teeth. So, yeah, he would have felt sympathy for this lady who's being told to get a new set.
Oh, yeah.
You have them all out, Lil. He said, I swear I can't bear to look at you. Very nice there, Albert. Anyway.
All right, let's conclude this section with good night, ladies. Good night, sweet ladies. Good night. Good night. So here is a kind of Shakespearean rag, right? This is Ophelia in Hamlet, of course. She leaves, and then next we hear of her, she has suffered death by water, which is section 4 of the Wasteland. So it's kind of like a foreshadowing of that.
Well, yeah, exactly. Did we already have one? Yeah, well, we already had Madame Sostre saying fear death by water.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So what's the... I thought we were on a wasteland. How are we in the water now? What's going on?
I mean, is this supposed to be kind of like a flood reference that if the world gets too corrupt, then it has to be flooded?
Could be. The deluge.
Yeah, the deluge.
Mm-hmm. You want to expand
and
on
also,
that?
I've heard it. Well, one interesting interpretation I read was that so Ophelia goes mad, right? And she starts kind of proclaiming lots of funky stuff that people said like verged between brilliant or nonsensical. And some people said that is how you could describe the wasteland, that first of all you take what you want from it, and that
if you want anything at
again,
all,
it's like, yeah, and it straddles that line between sensical and absurd.
Yeah, I like that.
And then also that he's generally throughout the poem sympathizing with women a lot. And some people have even said that's one of his more redeeming qualities, that like even if we do see him kind of like venturing towards anti-Semitism or maybe Turkish, I don't know. We'll get to that later, but that's kind of a reference with my Smyrna merchant.
Right.
But yeah, so that sympathy for Ophelia comes right after Lil. And so it's like these women getting sacrificed by men's brute force, and yeah,
so rudely forced. Yeah. And of course,
yeah, exactly.
Of course, Ophelia was pregnant with Hamlet's child, we think, right? Yeah.
I didn't remember that, but yeah.
So she drowns not only herself but her unborn child. Hamlet Jr. All right, well, we've just passed the 2-hour mark. Should we stop here and pick up later, because I'm like out of energy and inspiration if I ever had any. So we finished part 1, the burial of the dead, and part 2, a game of chess, and we'll pick up with part 3, the fire sermon, next time. But do you have any final thoughts about the game of chess? I found one specific reference that says the hot water at 10, and if it rains, a closed car at 4, and we shall play a game of chess, pressing lidless eyes and waiting for a knock upon the door. What is that about? What's the game of chess? Why does that come into play at all?
Where are you? That's in the poem, right?
Yes. That's just just before lines, the Lil section. Yeah. I mean, that's the literal game of chess referred to. What's going on?
So a couple things. I can't explicitly answer that, but I can say that we've got 5 sections, and 4 out of the 5 have a kind of continuity. Like the first one is supposed to be about Earth, with like the burial of the dead. Then you get fire in 3, and then you get water in 4 and air in 5. So you get like the 4 elements, and then you also have a transition from different seasons in each section. So you start with spring, and then later you go, you'll get fall, and then you'll come back to spring.
Then what's chess?
So that's what I'm saying. This is the one that's like the outlier.
Oh, okay.
But it is a reference. I don't know if you got that, but it's an allusion to Women Beware Women by Thomas Middleton. Which, that idea of like women beware women, you've heard it said maybe that like a woman's chief rival or struggle is against other women, and in that scene that we read with Lil,
I've heard that
would be
I've
true.
heard that misogynistic trope, but yeah. Believe all women.
Yes. I'm not sure what to give you beyond that, except that it's like about, again, if we come back to the world being all about Darwinism, and then it's just like really all about out-tacticking. I don't think that's a word, but outmaneuvering one another. Yeah. And that's the struggle of our worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Our worlds.
All right. Well, I think we've pretty thoroughly covered the first 2 sections, and that took us 2 hours. So I don't know, if we reconvene for another 2 hours, I think we can get through the final 3 sections.